Good morning. Have you thought that Artemis 2 mission may affect housing here on Earth? This is Jason from Jason Expeditions. So, the reason why I say this is that you're hearing about Artemis 2. Of course, they're testing their systems. And the overall goal for all of this is what? Well, it's more than just going to the moon, which in a way, when I say that out loud, it doesn't really sound like I'm showing it the proper respect for all the steps involved and the accomplishments that are included in it. But I'm trying to go a little bit beyond that straightforward component. So there's going to be the Artemis 3 stage. Now, that's mostly dealing with the orbital aspects and obviously the next steps that are involved. Now, when we get to Artemis 4, now we're actually getting to the point of an actual physical landing with the astronauts. Now, what is the overall goal? Is it just to have astronauts land on the moon? Well, actually, the overarching goal is for habitation, a base, a settlement, an outpost, however you want to view it. Now, this can have an effect when we think about the technologies that are going to have to be required for a habitation. It's both commercial buildings, it's going to be residential buildings, it's going to be the technologies and, of course, shielding and many other components of this. So we're talking about, when it comes right down to it, habitation. And if I'm saying they in a general sense, not just with the Artemis missions, but overall, this development for a focus towards habitation on the moon as, let us say, one starting point, opens up interesting options when it comes to habitation options that we could be building here on Earth. Now, I live in Vancouver, and one of the ongoing conversations is about housing. And typically it's about affordable housing, which is, and I'm just going to give a generalized view as I see it, is that that's a very economic component of saying about housing. Another way of looking at housing is livable housing, because not everybody has the same view of what is livable, what they like for housing. I personally have lived in many different habitations, and some are quite content to have a very customized tent. You can even find cultures that have a variety of tent designed, and I'm sure there's many different names for them, that are very worthwhile and useful and have existed for many centuries and have been updated for nomadic cultures. You have others who build more fixed structures. And from that standpoint, you have ones built with wood, ones built with concrete, stone, list goes on, different architectural styles, and so forth. And then you've got individuals who really do enjoy having a home that's in, let's say, in some sort of vehicle, something that they can be moving, that's powered. And then you have those like houseboats. So there's a lot of different forms when it comes to habitation. But how do we develop new forms? Maybe cheaper forms, maybe more flexible forms. Well, you have to push the limits. And I didn't notice that when they were talking to the astronauts from the Artemis 2, when they had done the loop around the moon, there were a number of statements, I'll get back to them on a later video, that I thought were indications of trying to push beyond what is being done right now. I think the saying they were using was to swing for the fences. So I just thought I would mention that, looking at the Artemis 4 mission, what sort of habitation will they be exploring? How could this affect habitation here? Could there be cheaper yet flexible forms? Could there be a spin-off benefit that may tackle the affordable housing, the livable housing issue? Not just in Canada, it's not a singular region that's having this challenge, but are there really new opportunities available to take building and possibly make it faster, possibly make it cheaper, make it more resilient? And in line with that, this is where my mind went, is that we think of astronauts. Have you thought of aquanauts? The reason why I say this is that I know that they're talking more about making submerged housing structures. Typically, the focus is how deep can you build it. Now, you don't have to do very deep habitations. Just like right now, the focus is the moon. I know some are thinking about Mars and going beyond the moon, but let's just think in terms of scale. If you're saying you want to build further out, doesn't it make sense that you have to prove that you can do it closer to home? So it does make sense that trying to build a habitation on the moon will expand building processes. Now, I thought I'd mention this. There's, I know it's not the only one, but there's the Vanguard subsea habitat. I had to look at my little notes here. It's going to be off of the Florida Keys. I believe you can go to deep.com and see more details on this. And so far as the information, I've just started looking into this. It's going to be on the Tennessee Reef. So those are going to be aquanauts, or I'm not sure if we're going to call them aquatourists. But the point being is that there are different technologies being developed and trying to be tested in different environments. Now, if there is efforts towards building habitations underwater and in space, doesn't it make sense that if you're to take those two extreme, somewhat extreme habitations, and by the way, there's already the habitation on the, any sort of space station has habitation. So there's already habitation in orbit. So if we're just to take this and, stick with me for a moment, you take the habitation that they're aiming for on the moon, which will come about after, if all goes accordingly, to after the Artemis 4 mission. And remember, this has to be in development already. So it can't just be something like, well, after Artemis 4 mission, then we're going to discuss how to build something. That doesn't really make sense. And it's somewhat the same if you're talking about the construction of underwater housing arrangements. There has been underwater housing arrangements. I think it's been approximately 50 years since there has been an actual underwater housing or habitation in the USA. Now, I would be curious as to what other countries have really developed underwater habitations, and also, has there been a sharing of the technologies and systems and development, both in space, in orbit, and underwater, towards where most of us are going to pick our habitation, and that is on land. And I'm going to say on the surface of the water, because those are the two areas that I find most real estate or housing or living, it takes place. So I just thought I'd bring that up because one aspect that I'm sort of very intrigued by is what spin-off technologies and how soon can these spin-off technologies be implemented to deal with or patch up or ad hoc some sort of solution to housing. And it is not just restricted to housing in terms of residential. It can also be applied to, can commercial buildings be more future-proofed? So that meaning that I've seen some of this technology already and it's being more refined, where buildings that can be basically reduced when it comes to the square footage used so as to cut down on waste, and expanded without massive costs and waste when it comes to demolition. There's so many ways that science, technology has been implemented over the years, and sometimes we lose track of how we've already benefited, but at times it just gets stalled. Like, I think there's a type of construction that was quite common. I mean, here I'm just going to use BC as an example. It was post and beam. And the skills that are required for the builders, carpenters, the people actually building it, was considerable, and I think quite special. Now, with the way most construction is done, at least out here when it comes to wood construction, it went for a long time based on 2x4s. It moved away from post and beam. Now, that did mean that you could train people in many aspects of that construction method quicker. And if my understanding is correct, and I have to expand on it, I'm not an encyclopedia on this, but I'm just trying to open up the discussion towards where one aspect of what we're seeing with the Artemis missions and with, you could say, submarine or underwater habitation models, is that both of these realms, underwater and space, open up interesting options for what you could say is nearly a simpler. Boy, you know what? The second I said simpler, I went, really? Is it really simple to build in a climate that's minus 40 degrees, like near the Arctic Circle, versus building somewhere near the equator, or building in an area where you have to take into consideration things like typhoons and things of this nature, or trying to densify or make communities. When I think about it a little bit, simple would be nice. I'm sure a certain component of simplicity is desired. To achieve it, well, I'm going to say it's above my pay grade, but it definitely is something that's good to have a conversation on. So I just wanted to talk about that. It's early in the morning, just sort of getting myself warmed up and trying to consider a few different avenues of thought, as there'll be some more updates with Artemis 2 right now. And I look forward to continuing this conversation with you in the future. And if anything that I'm mentioning here just, I don't know, gets the brain operating, gets you to think, well, hold it, yeah, what are the connections on this? Are we missing something? And instead of thinking of it just from disruptive technologies perspective, as more collaborative technologies. You might have heard me say this, a jam session in connection to musicians, a way of sharing techniques and technologies and education towards at least something that may work for a period of time, be an improvement. So I leave those thoughts with you. Thank you for your patience, and I guess like anything else, at times I'm going to have to say this. If you're wanting to like this, if you want to put forward some constructive comments, Even if you want us to, or want me to travel and look into an opportunity or a development, and you think that it would be nice to get a firsthand look, approach, research, viewpoint, then we're going to be open to it. I'm going to see what can be done. I appreciate your time. I'm hoping that this had at least a little bit of an eye-opening perspective. And I thought I'd throw in one other thought as I was reflecting a little bit on what the astronauts spoke of when they had, seen what they had seen on the dark side of the moon. There was a word that was used. It was humility. I was wondering what sort of vocabulary they were going to use. And I did think it was quite interesting. It's worthy of a little further research as to that word, humility. Because when they said it, you can tell that because they were talking about scope, like the distance, and then they were reflecting on their size and the significance of themselves to what they were seeing, what they were experiencing. It does open up an interesting thought process. What is true humility? And I'm not sure about you, but I find that it's an interesting word. I'm not going to ruin it for you. This is something I invite you to do, is pick up a good dictionary or online and look up, what is humility? Is it something that's just weakness? Is there such a thing as false humility? What is the best version of humility, and how does it benefit us, our interactions, our ability to have a perspective that is beneficial long term? Because it is interesting the choice of words people make when they are facing truly a situation that requires, digging maybe a little deeper mentally, emotionally, and trying to find out, well, what is the meaning? What's the why? So, yes, at times I do think deeply on certain subjects. I think it's healthy. And so I thank you for your patience. This is Jason Expeditions. I look forward to having further conversations with you, and I hope that there was some value in what I mentioned in this